welcome back to another episode of My Corner of the Universe. Today, we had the pleasure of interviewing Kaytie Fiedler from Open Arms International. And this is an organization that I had heard of before, and you may have as well. But gosh, hearing what they're doing over in Kenya is really amazing, just to see how an organization can grow. And she said that back in, I think she said 2003, they purchased 54 acres. And now from just having, empty land to what they have now, they have dairy farm, they have medical facility, they have a school, numerous houses for, children's homes. So it's really, they're quite a compound that they've been able to set up over the last 15 years. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like really such a magical place, a place that I'd love to go visit, help out and see. So if you've listened to our podcast for a while, we interviewed an organization a while back from Kenya, and just learning about the poverty there and the needs and the street children, the amount of kids who are either orphan or just the really unfortunate situations that are going on, and kids there that are literally dying of starvation that we don't really see here in the United States, or if you're listening in Western Europe, to be able to see organizations like Open Arms International, what Kaytie is doing, helping these people out, it just warms your heart, but it also makes you think like, gosh, there's got to be ways that we can help out, right? And sharing this message helps out, donating helps out. She gives a couple of really great options to volunteer and help out. Like, when it's not COVID time, you can actually go there and help out physically. You could donate. You don't have to donate a lot. Your money stretches a long ways. But she also talked about ways that you can literally be a volunteer from your home. You don't have the money and we can't travel right now. There's ways that you can help out this organization just from your home.
Yep. And when times are tough, you have to get creative, and she talked about how they got creative over there, but also, being able to, help out in your home, since everyone's staying home right now, is really a neat way to be able to give back to an organization.
Yeah, it was really interesting too to hear her talk about how COVID changed and affected the grounds there, and how they had to deal with lockdowns, and then also just the growth that came from that. And just overall, I was just so impressed with what they have done with Open Arms International in Kenya. I think you guys are going to really, really enjoy the episode. And hopefully after you're done listening to it, or in the middle of it, you're Googling or checking them out and seeing their pictures, follow them on social media. Their website is openarmsinternational.org. And that's pretty much the same handle on most of social media platforms too, to be able to get pictures of the kids and see more of what they have going on there.
Yeah, and stay tuned, because Kaytie is going over there next month, and we're going to try to connect with her when she's over there to, be able to see and talk to some of the kids on the grounds over there. So we're really looking forward to that, and that will be coming to an episode near you soon. So enjoy the episode, like and share, and thanks again.
Welcome to another episode of My Corner of the Universe. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Kaytie Fiedler from Open Arms International. It is truly an incredible organization. You guys are going to love this episode. It's one that I think is really going to touch the emotional heartstrings for each and every one of you listening. And after or midway through this episode, I know you're going to be trying to Google or go to their website to learn more about them and what they're doing, because it's just going to be such an exciting episode. Kaytie, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with our typical question, like we always do, but it's always good to know, is tell us a little bit about the background story of Open Arms International, kind of how it came from, how the idea popped up, and then how it became an idea to a reality.
Yeah, in 2003, a couple from Oregon were living over in the UK and working on a project there for an association. And they are a pastor and a registered nurse that were living and working there together. And then when they were finished with this project, which was a big evangelistic outreach program for a really well-known evangelist, Luis Palau, they finished this project project. And then there was a couple there that said, hey, if you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you do? We would like to help you and fund that. Could you imagine having somebody just offer to fund your dream?
Yeah.
And so this couple said, we would love to take our two talents, medical and ministry, and put that together and reach kids in Africa. And so that was their first goal, was to start working in Africa. And this couple did. They funded them and got the whole thing kicked off back in 2003 and picked the name Open Arms International. It's been that since the beginning. And the couple now are doing different things. One of them, the wife, Rachel, she is still in Kenya, and her husband is doing other things now, but she's still very, very much dedicated to running the program in Kenya specifically. So it started out as just taking teams over and doing a variety of projects. And then as time progressed, they saw the need for not just coming and going, the kind of love them and leave them approach that if you're familiar with short-term service projects or short-term mission teams, it's always great to take a group over and make an impact. But then what happens when you leave? And they decided that it was best to put roots down in one city. And so they chose Eldoret, Kenya, and that's how it got started.
Awesome.
Where
okay.
in Kenya is that?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too.
Yeah, Eldoret is near the Ugandan border. So when you fly to Nairobi and then take another short flight out west toward Uganda. And Eldoret is the name of the town.
Nice. It's such a cool thought. Like, I feel like it's like a high school counselor thing to be like, if you didn't have to work, if money wasn't an issue, what would you do for your life? But it seems like it's never really a reality. Like you said, not many times in our life does somebody actually come up to us and say, hey, I'm going to fund whatever you want to do. What do you want to do? So that's a pretty cool story that they got to that point.
Yeah, it is remarkable. And there's still one of our major funders today, which is spectacular. So Open Arms has an office in the UK. That's actually where it originated, in Manchester and in Portland and in Texas. And we have a small staff where there's 7 of us, but we generate quite a lot of work here out of the US office, and there's 3 in the UK office. And then, of course, our village in Kenya has a very large staff.
How many years have you guys been around now?
It started in 2003.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the village in Kenya, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, is it pretty good size? Is multiple structures? What? Just kind of paint that picture for people so they can visualize what it's like in that village in Kenya.
Yeah, when we decided we needed to put roots down there, we were looking for property. And property, once you are identified as a Westerner looking to buy something,
prices go up.
Yeah, I guess, yes, yeah. So, which I get, it's an impoverished country, and of course they need the funds. And I've always, struggled with that a bit, about that balance of being taken advantage of, but also we have resources. And if those resources can bless a community, which is what we want to do, then we want to have a fair and balanced approach to purchasing things. And so the property was scouted out, and then we ended up buying 54 acres in 2006. So we have 54 acres there that encompass 10 children's homes. We have 3 guest lodges where teens come over and can actually live and stay and work at the village. We have we call it the Life Center building, which is a large administrative building. It has a medical clinic and also houses some of our schoolrooms. And then we have a school with 4 school buildings and 250 students that come to school there. And we have 157 full-time residents, children that have been rescued off of the streets and now have a home in a Kenyan family model. From the beginning, we didn't want to be an institution. We really wanted to provide a home where kids could come in and experience having house parents and aunties and siblings. And so our homes range from from between 16 and 20 kids in each home. And then we have a baby home as well. So when we take in infants, we have a special place for the infants to go. So that's basically the structure of it. And on top of that, there's a dairy farm, and we now have agricultural projects. And so we're working toward being as self-sustaining as we can. We're not quite there yet, but we've got the milk, the eggs, the chickens. We've got
That's great.
maize. Yeah. We're about 30% self-sufficient with what we can grow and produce there on property, and then have our kids consume it.
Where are you guys rescuing the kids from?
That's such a great question. So Eldoret is full of very impoverished people, and it's a community that has this interesting juxtaposition of a thriving city center with a teaching hospital and lots of really cool things happening that are very progressive, and then you've got the extreme poverty all there in the same communities. And so there are a few slum areas that we have our eye on, and we partner with organizations that are working in the slums to identify the most needy kids and the most vulnerable, that they are watching. They see children that end up on the street. They don't have a place to go. There are social workers in town, fortunately, that do their best to try and reconnect them with a family. But if they find that there really is no opportunity for this child to be anywhere else but on the streets alone, then they contact us. So our children are brought to us by social workers that have done some pre-work to try and make sure that they truly are in need. In the past, we've had some families bring us children where, sadly, but understandably, they know where their families are, but they know they would be better off in our village. And so we've had to really vet over the years, since we've been operating properly as a children's home since about 2010. We've had to really be careful about how we take in children, because there are so many in need, and we want to make sure we're reaching the most vulnerable. Just a quick story. When I was there in October, I happened to be present when a mom that had a 4-month-old baby living on the streets with her came into our village and gave us her baby. And it was the most moving experience. The social worker came with her. They called ahead of time and said, "We've identified this mama. She's addicted to glue sniffing, which is a really common way to numb pain. And she has a 4-month-old. The baby was premature. We've been watching her, and we think it would be best if she could bring her child to the village." So, of course, we said yes. And she just had the most saddened yet grateful look on her face, that mixed emotion of, I don't want to give my baby up. You knew she loved her so much, but she knew that the best thing would be for her to be in our care. And the social worker told us that she took special care that day not to sniff any glue. She wanted to be completely sober when she made this choice. And it was obvious when we held the baby and looked at her, she had done her best to take care of her. I mean, she was clean and well cared for. And I had the privilege of spending the first night with baby Faith, is her name. And I'm a nana now, so it's been a long time since I had a baby. But I'm telling you, all those motherly instincts came right back in. Nice. And she did so well. You know, we were concerned about her having drug addiction herself, and withdrawals, and would she take to a bottle? She'd never had a bottle, never had formula. And would she even sleep? Because she's used to sleeping on the street with all the street noise. And she did so well. She woke up a couple times during the night, but she took the bottle, she took the formula. I mean, it was amazing. And in the morning, she was all smiles and happy and giggly. And so we were just so honored to have this life. And I felt so honored to be there to help in that transition of this life coming into the village, and knowing that she wouldn't have to spend another night on the street. And we do make arrangements with parents that we feel are safe. If we know their families and we know that they're safe, then we will allow them to come and see their children. And we don't want to disconnect them from family. It's very important.
I was going to ask that too, because I think that was the question that popped into my head was like, how does that work? You know, where that mom drops the baby off and then let's say 2 years, she's totally sober. She's like, hey, I would like to have my child back. You know, it's not something like where we think of in the US where like CPS took the kid, you have to go through a court
Right.
system. Is it, or how does it work?
It's a great question. We do have a lot of proper paperwork with the Child Welfare Department there in the city. So we are in close communication. We're actually the number one referral agency if they have a child in need. We have an excellent reputation with them. So paperwork is a big part of that because we certainly don't ever want to be accused of trafficking. That's
Mm-hmm.
obviously a huge issue.
Which is an issue in
And
Kenya too, right? It's a
a
pretty big issue
huge
in
issue
Kenya.
in
Yeah.
Kenya. Yes. So we don't want to ever be accused of that. We don't adopt our children out. That isn't anything that even is a consideration for us. We
Mm-hmm.
want them to stay in Kenya. We want them to be Kenyans. So when we do identify kids, which we did during COVID, we were wanting to give our older kids the opportunity to go back into their families if they were able and ready to do that. So we exited 11 of our kids. And in that process, we went through and made sure that their families were stable. We gave the family a stipend so that they were, able to take on an extra mouth to feed, and made sure that the environment was safe for them, that the child was going to be able to have their own bed and all the food and care that
Mm-hmm.
they needed. And then we're in close contact with the families and the kids as well. So we do take a lot of care in making sure that if we exit a child, that we know exactly where they are and where they're going, and it's a safe place to be, and all the proper paperwork is done.
Do you have
What
any, has it ever happened where you exited a child and they want to come back and volunteer or help out?
Yes,
That's awesome.
I love that question. Yeah, during COVID, when we had to shut the whole village down, it was quite the process because there are a lot of workers that are coming and going, day workers, teachers,
Mm-hmm.
aunties, people that just come and help, the farm workers. And so we had to close down the village and you couldn't exit. And so until it took a few months for everybody to sort out, okay, how is this spreading? What's safe?
Mm-hmm.
What's not safe? And so for a few months, we had to lock the entire village down. And so the house parents, the aunties, any staff person that decided to stay there, they were there and couldn't go home. And so we had a couple of our exited kids that were in their early 20s that knew a lot about farming. And our farm manager was able to stay some of the time, but not all the time. So he trained them to take care of the animals and take care of the horticulture that was happening on property. And yeah, so those kids were happy to come back and
Oh,
help.
cool.
It was really cool.
That's
I was
awesome.
so proud of them.
Yeah.
And then we actually had some of our older kids come and bring food from their family farms and help
wow.
supplement what we had there at the village. And so seeing that community give back our exited kids was really, really powerful.
What are the ages that you guys will keep the kids up until they're 18 or?
Yeah, it is about 18, or it depends on when they decide they want to go to college. And if they can exit earlier, they will. If there's a program outside that they want to go to, then we'll help them go to a program outside. A lot of the best high schools are boarding schools. And so some of our high schoolers are those with the best grades. I mean, you have to have the good grades to get into
Mm-hmm.
these higher level schools. So they'll head out and they'll be at a boarding school. So it depends on their own level of aptitude. We, of course, just like our own kids here in the States, you don't know if that kid is destined to be a doctor or destined to be a day laborer, which both are great and important.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try and do individual counseling and work up a program for them that helps them achieve and exactly what they should be achieving, not expect way too much or expect too little, but help them get out in the world ready to do something to take care of themselves.
Are you guys actually doing the teaching, or are they actually leaving to a school?
Yeah, some of it, we have programs on property like farming. We also build silos. Grain silos are an important thing for Kenyan families. You buy grain in bulk, and then you have to either fill it with pesticides to keep it from rotting, or you put it in a silo. And so we've started this very inexpensive silo program for families to buy and keep their grain safe, which has been really
Cool.
successful.
Well, cool.
So we teach the kids, some of the kids, if they're interested in that, it involves welding and metal cutting and things like that. We have a bakery on property. Several years ago, a donor gave
Property
us
sounds
funds.
awesome.
Oh, it's
It sounds
amazing.
so cool.
I hope you guys at some point would have an opportunity to come.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So kids work in the bakery. We have a medical clinic, kids that are interested in helping learn how to do things in the dispensary or just basic record keeping. Wherever there's a chance to learn on property, kids are involved. All the homes have their own little gardens, which we started when COVID hit because we didn't know how long we were going to be under lockdown. So they quickly started their own gardens, and all the kids, I mean, oh my gosh, when every morning when I left my little home to go to work in the office at the village, those kids are out there. They're hanging laundry, they're digging in the garden, they're helping cook. One of the moms confessed that the kids are better cooks than she is.
We'll talk about like, not just like, I don't know if the word be a blessing in disguise, or at least like finding light in tough times, which happens a lot of times where we go through our biggest growth in the hardest times. When COVID hit, you're thinking, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Like, is it safe? We got to lock down. This is kind of scary. But look what came from it within the village was, hey, different kids probably learned different skills on the farming. Different kids learned, how to garden and do these different things. There's probably all kinds of cool things that came from what was a very challenging time.
They were super creative. I was watching kids just come up with games and activities and ways to keep themselves busy. That was really impressive. I attended a soccer ball making, or football, I call it football there, football making workshop where the dads in the homes were taking plastic sacks and wrapping them with twine and making these soccer balls. And I was impressed. They were super heavy and good for training, but we have a soccer pitch there. So the kids were getting very, very inventive. So I agree with you. It was good.
So I have a really important question then. Who's the most popular soccer player, football player in the village?
Oh my gosh.
Messi or Ronaldo?
They love Manchester United. Okay. That's a thing. I think it's big. I couldn't name a player, sadly. Yeah. I'll have to ask them. So if we do this again and we get to the village, you can ask the kids. They'll tell you.
Well, I know, like, I forget if Joseph, the other guy we interviewed, a lot of kids like this guy Jair Drogba, because he's from the Ivory Coast. He was one of the best, and he's kind of older now. He's probably even retired, but he was kind of an iconic player for a lot of young African kids because he made it all the way to as one of the elite players in the world.
Amazing. One thing that's really cool, the kids are runners, and in the Rift Valley where we're located, it is an actual Olympic training center for runners, and it's the right altitude, and it attracts people from all over the world to train there. So a lot of kids are interested in running too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kenyans are known as some of the best runners in the world for sure.
Yeah.
What's the kind of vibe in the community over Open Art? Like, what's the support from the community? Kind of talk a little bit about just overall in the area.
That's a great question. One of our top values is outreach and being a good community member. So we hire a lot of people from the community. That's important to us. We also have to be very careful about tribal relations. And the property sits on 2 different counties that have 2 different tribes and 2 different chiefs. And so the political system is really, really tricky. And I've learned a lot about this over the years, how important it is to keep your community happy. And when you're trying to work with 2 different tribes and hire equally and look like you're being fair and balanced in everything that you're doing, it can be really tricky. So perceptions can also get ahead of you. And than it takes repair work. So being in the community is very, very important. So we do emergency feeding. When COVID hit, we specifically raised funds so that we could be out in the community and give food and support. We have a school where 250 kids come, and half of those kids come from the community. So we're the top rated school in the area, and we try and do as many scholarships as we can to support community kids that need to be in a good school. We do our best to do as many medical clinics as we can. Of course, free medical care is very desirable, and because that's one of our high values is giving people medical care. We do free medical clinics, and when we have the opportunity, we haven't with COVID, obviously, because it hasn't been safe enough to do that, but that we definitely have a reputation for providing free medical care. Water is another thing that we provided to the community. We have our property right on the river, and we had a project that was funded and completed where we pump water up to a spigot that is outside of our gates, and then the community can come and get free water. And that's a big help as well. So there's a number of community days we have the kids come and we provide like a big field day and have fun. So when the village is open, it's really active and a lot of people can come and go. But doing community work is a very high value of ours.
How big is the city or the community around you where you're located over there?
That's a good question. I think it's about 300,000 that are in like the city and the town proper. It's bigger than that, but just in our area.
Right.
Yeah.
And then how far outside of the city are you guys located?
About 20 miles.
Okay.
So yeah, it takes a bit to get to the heart of the city, but we're still close enough. Yeah.
Got it.
Close enough.
And how many people would you say are employed through what you do over there? I know you kind of talked about it here, but.
Yeah. We have 84 staff members that are all Kenyan, and there are 2 Western faces on the property. Otherwise, it's all Kenyans, and that's another very, very high value of ours that we
that's an
are
amazing operation to have.
Run by
really
Kenyans.
Yeah.
Yes. It's impressive. I mean, I seriously have to say it's impressive. And our executive director and founder, Rachel, who works on property 24/7, she's amazing and has done an incredible job. But having Kenyans be leading is extremely important to us. We're not there to make a little America. And in fact, honestly, guys, it's something that we've struggled with as we have come into an age where we're very accessible. We have lots of teams that come over. Of course, we didn't in COVID, but on average, we have around 150 to 200 people coming from the US and the UK every year coming and doing projects. And so in this digital age, we're really trying to protect our kids from getting too Americanized or being too exposed to Western ideals and even clothing and music and all the things that really aren't best for them. And they're not realistic for them. And
That's
so
great.
That's
really great.
We're figuring it out because, the kids, as they get older, they have access to phones and then they have access to the internet. And then, we really try and protect them as much as we can on property, but it's near impossible because of the age that we're living in. So our goal is not to create a little America. And we really want it to be a Kenyan culture that's developed there. And it's a bit mixed because, we've had a lot of people coming and going and influences there, but we try and leave, what's the best of us without contaminating the best of you and build that together.
How is infrastructure there? Just out of curiosity, is there Wi-Fi there? Would you have Wi-Fi there? What's power like? I mean, is there a possibility of being self-sufficient with power? You talked about the river, but do you guys have like septic wells? Like, how does all that work out there?
Yeah, we are in a septic system.
And it's really fun to turn the conversation talking about septic.
It's funny when you take people overseas, you guys have probably done it too. I mean, the first thing is bodily functions. Everybody turns toward bodily function. Is there a bathroom in this village? Is there, we have proper working Western toilets. So I will say we've Americanized that. But yeah, the electricity is unfortunately from the city power source, and there are definite talks of how can we do a hydro, project that will get us the electricity that we need without relying on the government power, because that is tricky. And of course, you have all the elements, you have animals, you have all kinds of things that put your power at risk. And so that is an issue for us. But we have a generator on property, so if power goes out, we can do generated power, but it's expensive, really expensive to have power at the village. But
what
we
about
do.
Solar? Do you guys
We have solar. Yeah,
Okay.
Great question. We do have solar. So a few of our children's homes have solar power, water, and that's great. And we need more of that for sure. It's expensive to do, but we need more of it. We've had some grants to get some of the homes up on that. And then Wi-Fi, we do have Wi-Fi. And again, the service providers are, it's not super reliable, but we've done our best to get the best that we can. And most of the time it's working pretty well, most of the time, just not
Nice.
super high bandwidth. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful place. Because I've done so many things around the world and taken people into sketchy places. I always say, if you're going to cut your teeth on doing some international work, this is like the Fisher Price level of going overseas. Yeah. It's super comfortable and it's safe, and we have 24/7 security. And so it's a great place to go if you're interested in trying to integrate yourself into doing something like this.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how people can physically volunteer. You mentioned projects, like how do people, if someone's listening to this and like, I want to go there and help out, do they contact you directly, or do they go through a different organization? What's the best route for them to be able to help out?
We do have a teams coordinator, and she does an excellent job at taking in applications and vetting our teams. So right now the village is closed until we can get past COVID and understand how we're going to be able to come and go safely with people. But in a normal year, people would put in an application and they would pay fees and go through a training that we provide, and then would spend on average about 2 weeks. And it depends on the team. We have teams that have come in and created fish farms. We've had teams that have come in and just volunteered at medical clinics and doing health assessments on all our kids, or volunteering and working in our school and working with all of our educators. We've had teams come in and work with pastors in the community or the elderly in the community. So what we do is work with the interest of the group and see where they have skills and where we have need, and match that up. And the process isn't very hard. You do need a visa. Of course, you need your passport. Who knows what's going to happen with COVID immunizations, but there isn't right now an immunization requirement to come to Kenya. You do right now have to go through a health screening process and have a negative COVID test. And they just announced that even leaving Kenya now, you have to have a negative COVID test. And the US just announced that on January 26th, anyone traveling internationally coming in needs a negative COVID test.
What's the effect of COVID been like over there?
I have to tell you, when this first happened, it was quite frightening, because in the community, they're not as up to date on news and information as they could be, especially in the very rural areas. So when this all happened and people didn't know exactly how it was transmitted and how deadly it could be, people were put in quarantined areas in rural parts of the area. And if they left, they would be shot.
Whoa.
Wow.
It was really, really serious. And so there was a big threat when we shut our village down, and then the people were losing their jobs. So then the resources were starting to get low. The ability for people to take care of themselves was becoming endangered. We had to let some of our staff members go because we didn't have work for them. We didn't have teams coming in. There wasn't anything for them to do. So unfortunately, we had to let some of our team members go, which is really hard and very sad. Yeah. And then locking down the village itself, because we have so many resources. We have dairy farm, we have steers, we've got all kinds of products. We were concerned about being raided. And sadly, it was a real concern for us because we were feeling quite vulnerable. And yes, we have great community ties, but when people are desperate,
totally.
poverty is ruining, their way of living, then you're at risk. And so it was very scary the first few months. And we did increase our security. Security is still high there. And I think that's a good thing because I think, sent a message to the community through our feeding programs and outreach programs that we've done since COVID. We do care. We care about the community. We want to help you, but we also need to keep our children safe. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our kids have vulnerabilities in their health. We are one of few that take in HIV positive kids. And so oftentimes we'll find that out after the fact. We don't know that they come to us HIV positive. We instantly do a test. We have protocols for that. The great news is, though, if we get those kids early enough with proper care and treatment and nutrition and medication, we have had 7 of our kids turn HIV positive to HIV negative.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And it's incredible, but a lot of our kids are vulnerable health-wise because they grow up with malnutrition and other issues that weren't treated when they were young, and so those impact them as they're growing up. So we've done, I think, an excellent job, and I give a lot of credit to Rachel, the executive director there. Being a nurse and a medical professional, she took it all extremely seriously, and we raised funds to get the masks and all the sanitary items that we needed to keep the village safe.
Has it been hit hard by the virus, or?
Not too hard. Overall, I just saw the stats yesterday. Overall in Kenya, there's about 2,200 cases that they know of. Mm-hmm. The challenge is they don't have the testing readily available. Yeah. And so they're not going to follow the same protocols that we will, where, you're encouraged the minute you have a symptom, go get tested, or if you're exposed, go get tested. They don't have the resources for that. There's also just a big stigma then, as I was saying, you were shot if you left a quarantine area several months ago. And so there's this kind of a leper stigma that's put on you if you go get tested and you have it, and your risk of spreading it, and people aren't as knowledgeable about how viruses spread or how contagious and dangerous it is. And of course, and as a world, we're not sure about how dangerous it is. So those sorts of stigmatisms and fear really is what it is. Fear. I don't think we know the true number of cases.
Yeah, when I was listening to a podcast with a guy who does work in Malawi, which is really poor country, and they said they tried to do a lockdown, but they couldn't do it because it's so poor that they're like there's no way we can not work and not do anything. Have you noticed kind of that similarity in Kenya where they're just like, we have to just we can't. Like they don't have the luxury, I guess, like the U.S. or Western countries where like, hey, we're going to pass a $2 trillion stimulus package or this. Like they're just like, if they lock down, nobody eats, then it gets really bad.
You're exactly right. There is zero government support. Zero. And so they have to get on with their lives. And when you go into the rural areas, which I did and traveled out there a bit, you don't see people wearing masks because it's life as usual. They have to make a living. They have to feed their families and go on with things. In the cities, especially in Nairobi and the big places, they're wearing the masks and they're being much more careful about it. But yeah, as you said, I mean, they don't have the luxury. They just don't. And I think that's sad for most of the world. I have lots of friends in India. It's the same way. I mean, how do you quarantine a slum with 6 million people in it?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
They're all such close quarters and, poor sanitation facilities.
We are so fortunate. And I think it's one of the things that I love about what you're doing, and it gives us such great perspective at how extremely blessed we are. We're inconvenienced at most And I know many people have lost their jobs. I have another company that I own that's an events production agency. It's decimated. We can't do events.
Mhm.
And so I understand lots of people have been hit very, very hard. And at the same time, we have so many resources. And for most people, at best, we're very inconvenienced. When people literally are not dying from COVID, they're dying from poverty and starvation and all of the impacts that these different lockdowns and suggestions for our health have caused the world. It's quite sad. So I think here in the States, we can just count ourselves as extremely blessed. And the more you hear stories about people who have really, really been damaged by this pandemic, I think it hopefully will help adjust our perspectives.
Yeah. Well, transitioning on how blessed we are in the United States, there is another way people can help out too, I'm sure, because you always need financial donations as well. See that, like that swaying of, the little stimulus check, just throw a few extra bucks over here, I mean, okay, but I do want to mention that because when we did interview Joseph with EV Grace Foundation, who's also in Kenya, he talked about just the importance of like $1 or $5. Like your money goes so much more when you can donate to organizations that are in places like Kenya. So just talk a little bit about how much like a $20 donation can make such a change for you guys.
Yeah, you can feed one of our families for a week with that. It's pretty amazing. We do a really good job, but actually, I have to say too, inflation is hurting us because now with the scarcity of food and the whole system of distribution being compromised over there, things are getting more and more expensive. So everything has been impacted for most people in the world that are in these developing countries as far as access to food and resources that are getting more expensive. So yes, your dollar is stretched much further in developing countries for sure. And what we have discovered, it costs, we're still doing the math because we're always trying to really calculate how much it costs to care for our whole village. And it does cost between $7 and $11 each day per person that's being served at the village. So that isn't much, but it could sound like much to somebody, but it's a huge operation. And so we just encourage people that if you think about it on a daily basis, if you're able to take a $10 bill and go, gosh, I could just serve an entire human being today.
For one less Starbucks.
For one less Starbucks. It's great. And I don't want to guilt anyone out of their coffee because I love my coffee. But at the same time, we have such opportunity to share. And I don't know, I feel compelled to just comment on the fact that, since you are highlighting so many different organizations, people often will stop me because I've been in international relief and development for so many years. Why would you send money overseas when there's so many people here that are hurting and need it? And we've got our own situations here that need funding. And I completely agree with that. But what I would tell them is if starving children in Kenya does not move your heart, what does? And if you're asking the question, why isn't anyone doing about the homeless situation in Portland, or why aren't we attacking our orphans here in the States, which are our foster kids? How come no one's doing anything about that? Well, if that's what keeps you up at night, please give your resources to those things. Everybody is called to a specific need in the world, and I just believe that is how God designed us. And if we all just follow that nudge and ask, why isn't anyone doing about that? Oh, I can do something about that. That's me. I believe that if we all followed that nudge, there wouldn't be any needs in the world. We are just created to serve each other. And so I would just ask that if you have a specific heart for Kenya, if Africa's been on your heart, if children suffering with AIDS and a baby that's 4 months old living on the street with her mama who's drug addicted, if those sorts of things really move your heart, we would be so happy to be a partner with you. And on average, our our partners give about $55 a month. That helps us so much with when we can do a monthly gift. We call it our Circle of Hope, and hope for us stands for the homes we provide, the outreach that we do, the purpose that we find in the community and the kids we serve, and then empowerment, empowering them to do what they've been called to do with their lives. So our Circle of Hope are people who give every month, and that way we can do our budgeting and count on those folks to help us keep our village running smoothly and effectively.
Nice. I'm glad you mentioned that because that was in my notes to ask about the Hope Mission. So I'm glad, I'm glad you brought that in there. Yeah, I'm so glad you did bring that up also, because when people do say that and they're like, well, what about the poverty in the U.S.? And I always am like, okay, great, but don't use that as an excuse to not give to either one or not help out either one. You know, like if you feel like you want to spend your resources on helping U.S. domestically, if that's where you're from, or if you're in England or Europe or wherever, then do that. Don't just do that. Don't just say that so then you don't give either way. But I also think it's important that, like you said, we are blessed where we live at and the resources that we have, that when we are blessed, it's important to be a blessing to others, that we're not born with the luxury and privilege that we were to be able to be born in places, you know, of wealth where we're at.
It's so true. And we're just called to serve each other. If you don't have money and you have time right now, if you don't have anything going on, you're laid off, you're whatever. If you have time, find a way to help somebody. You can do that without going anywhere. And I love that about what you're doing. You know, you can reach everybody and go nowhere with what you're doing and spread.
Do you have any volunteer opportunities right now during COVID for people, like any sort of online help or processing help or anything they can do? Like, hey, I got time. I'm on unemployment right now and I can help out in this way.
Yeah, great question. We love to call our donors and thank them. And so donor calling is a great way to help us out. And one thing that's really fun, when you get to make phone calls, we always ask why. Why did you give? And we collect those stories about why people have been giving to Open Arms. We also have, if you're local, I mean, we can send you stacks of cards. We write thank you cards, and we have mailings that go out at different times of the year that we try and process some of those internally. So there's mailings that can be done physically if you're in the area, or we can send them to you to process. Those are the two things right now that we've been able to use outside help without having someone come into an office.
Cool. That's great. Yeah. I think people would, be definitely all over a way that they can give back when they don't have money. Because I would imagine funding right now is probably down. A lot of the nonprofits that we talk to, just because times are hard for people, or, might not have jobs, like Vaden alluded to. And so to be able to give back through another way is great for a lot of people.
Yeah, it just lifts your heart when you get to do something. I'm always an advocate for serve somebody else, and you will instantly lift yourself out of any sort of funk you may be in.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kaytie, this has been great. Really enjoyed hearing about Open Arms International, what you guys are doing, just overall, just the conversation in general. I think you've painted a great picture of what the property's like. It sounds amazing. I would love to be able to go and visit. And just any other thing you want to add on there too with the Hope Mission, or is there like sponsor a child type of things? What are other ways that people can either contact you, help? Do you want them to go to the website? Just kind of throw your shameless plug or pitch in there at the end of whatever you want people to do.
Well, we always like to make sure that our supporters and those that are considering supporting us know that you are literally saving lives when you invest in the village and you invest in the processes and the systems that we've developed to care for children. You're literally saving lives. And our sponsorship program is really about sponsoring the village versus a child. And I'll tell you what we've found vulnerable for us over the years is in this digital age, digitally protecting our children is very important. And so we will tell you lots about what's happening at the village, what children are experiencing and how they're doing. but we don't connect you with a specific child just to keep our kids safe. And so we will communicate with you a lot about what's happening when you become a partner with ours, but we don't connect you with a specific child for many reasons. But you will get news and information from us. Every dollar counts. We are audited every single year in all 3 countries. So we like to really say that we are transparent with our finances, and our integrity is high, and our stewardship is high. Every dollar is counted. I can tell you that the house parents are all allocated like a certain number of rolls of toilet paper every month. I mean, it is so well regulated. So I've found such pride in knowing that there's a high level of stewardship there. And so if you want to make an impact in the world, go to openarmsinternational.org. You can find us online and see pictures from the village and see pictures of our kids. And if you choose to partner with us, you can be confident that you're going to have an excellent experience being part of our Circle of Hope, or just a one-time giver. We'll be extremely grateful, and you will change a life in Kenya.
Awesome. What about other places people can find you? Facebook or
Absolutely.
Instagram?
Yep. Facebook, Instagram, Open Arms International.
Okay, great.
You can find us there, no problem. And we've always got fun stuff going on up there. I'll be going back to the village on February 14th and staying for about 6 weeks. So if you want to reconnect, that would be fun. And I can get some of the kids on camera.
That would be great. Yeah.
They are shameless self-promoters.
That was a great little teaser. So, if you just like this episode, I'd love to do that. And even if you're listening to this and not watching it on YouTube, then that would be a great reason to watch the bonus episode, follow up on YouTube so you can see all the kids as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. Very fun. They're big hams.
Yeah. Thank you, Kaytie.
Well, thank you, Kaytie. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. God bless you guys.
Yeah.